All right, I've got 6 after 6, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you may have just heard a little message there that we are recording this meeting. Appreciate you joining us for the Russleo Drive, and that recording will be available here a couple days from now at NDOT's website. And so if you have neighbors or anybody that wasn't able to attend with us, that will be available. Again, thanks for joining. We're here to talk for a few minutes about a proposed traffic calming project on your street. And I want to do really three things here as efficiently as we can. Well, first of all, I'll give you a little bit of a background on the traffic calming program and how Russleo got inducted into it. Secondly, maybe most importantly, I want to show you a very preliminary concept for traffic calming on the street. And then the third thing we'll do is leave you with some next steps, what you can expect from us and where we're going from here with the project. Just very quickly, a little bit of background. This is a residential street program that is offered by NDOT. That's the Nashville Department of Transportation that you see down in the bottom right-hand corner. And by the way, I started and didn't introduce myself. My name is Jeff Hammond. I'm a consultant that works for NDOT, and we help administer this program for the city. And we do focus this program on speed reduction. We're trying to deploy measures out in the streets that try to counter some of the fast conditions that we have seen. Of course, this is a application in program. Someone has applied into this from the street, and we'll talk more about the data here in just a minute. We do focus on engineering. We focus on putting things in the street. The police department is who writes tickets. We don't do that. And we do have a few education tools, but we know that these three E's work together if we're going to have the safest streets possible in the city. We just like to let you know that we focus on the engineering part of that in this program. And here's one reason why we do. We know that safety continues to be a top priority, kind of a hot topic in our industry, because at least since 2020, we've seen some pretty noticeable shifts in crashes, particularly dealing with pedestrians and other non-motorized users. I'm not sure what this means. I'm getting a request for annotation. Close that. And so you see some of the information here dealing with survivability of a crash when speeds are low. So that's just one reason why we're really focusing on speeds in neighborhoods. This continues to be a really popular program across Davidson County, being offered by NDOT. You can see here the number of applications that we have. It hovers right around 500 applications. A lot of those are carryovers from previous times, but there's a lot of demand. And so if you're having these problems on Russleo or any of our streets, we just like to remind you you're not alone, unfortunately, in that. It's nothing really specific to your street, but we have noticed by the fact that you've been selected that it does rise to kind of meet some of our thresholds for beginning a project, and that's what we're here to do. You can see if we've got roughly 500 applications, we are only able to do about 50 a year, 25 in 2 different windows, and so Russleo is part of that number currently. We do like to remind folks of Hub Nashville. It's another great resource that's available for us as residents of Davidson County. Any kind of service request, and not just related to transportation or NDOT, but most departments are represented there. Hub.Nashville.gov is a great way to start that request. You can also just pick up the phone and call 311. But this is how this street and all of our streets get inducted into the program. Anytime there's an application made twice a year, we will go out and take some data measurements on all of these streets. And we're looking for things like the amount of traffic on the street and, of course, how fast that traffic is moving. But we're also looking at things like, are there sidewalks on the street? Is there transit service nearby? Also, is it in an area that might be more conducive to having pedestrian activity, like are there schools nearby? Are there parks nearby, libraries, those types of things? So we look at all of that data and roll that all together and come up with a composite score, and then basically just rank those all the way down the list. And I guess unfortunately, Russleo made it in the top, the upper echelon of that list, in the top 25 for this round, and so that's why we're looking at it for a traffic calming project. Here's some of that data specific to the street. And we'll look at this in just a second in a map form, but we are going from Fleetwood to Charlotte. But the 85th percentile speed, which is just kind of a statistical way that we in our industry look at speed, is 38 miles an hour. That means that of all the cars traveling on the street, 15% of those were going faster than 38. It could have been 40, it could have been 45, it could have been 50. We just know it's faster than 38. And that lower level threshold is kind of where we're looking at in relation to all the other streets that we measured. The volume is pushing 2,000 cars a day. That sounds like a lot. It's a fair amount of traffic, but it's nowhere near our upper limit of about 5,000 cars a day. We will do this type of traffic calming on streets up to that much, so it's well within our guidelines for doing a traffic calming project like this. It is about a 20-foot wide street. It's pretty narrow by metro standards, but again, it doesn't present us any real difficulties. Just helps us to tailor a project to meet the needs of a street like that. This is a pretty short street, or at least a short segment that we're looking at, which is about a third, just a little under a third of a mile long. We know that Russleo is an extension of Knob Road, and Knob Road received traffic calming a year or so ago, and so we're kind of treating it as the final piece of that street. Although this data that you're seeing here, it did qualify on its own. We would not otherwise have been doing a project on Russleo other than it scored high enough to be considered in its own right. So, but it will, if it moves into a traffic calming project, it will probably feel like a natural extension of the work that's already been done on Knob Road. There's a picture of it. I know that's hard to see, but excuse me. The big yellow arrow there indicates the limits of our project. You see the blue line that extends onto the east from there. That blue dotted line indicates that there already has been traffic calming installed. Of course, that's the project on Knob Road. Some of the other colors there mean different things as well. Just to the south of this is Hillwood Boulevard, and you can see that it is in line. We've already gone through this process, had its meetings and so forth, and it's just waiting to be installed. So anyway, this is an interactive map that is available on NDOT's traffic calming website. So you may find it interesting to get in there and zoom around. You can look all over the county at where traffic calming is currently being planned. You don't see any here, but another one we like to point out, there are some purple lines that show up on this map. That indicates that traffic calming has been applied for, but just not selected at this point. It hasn't been prioritized. A few of the tools that we have in our toolbox. The first one is really the bread and butter of this program. It's the speed cushion. People now, generally speaking, are very familiar with these. Those of you, of course, living on Russleo are, because of the installation that we've done on Knob Road and others. O'Brien is just across Charlotte, and there's some others in your area as well. We do have some design considerations. You see a couple of different configurations here, two cushions, 3 cushions. We might do wider, but all of that just has to do with the width of the street. So in this case, with a 20-foot wide road, your application will look very similar to what is shown in the upper left-hand corner. We have some flexibility or some design choice when it comes to the length of the speed cushions. Those just have to do with really how fast you can comfortably drive over them. The shorter they are, the more aggressive they feel. They bring about a slower speed. The longer ones, up to 14 feet, have a more gradual feel and are a little softer. But that means people tend to drive a little bit faster over those. Kind of a close cousin to the speed cushion is speed table. This one we keep in the toolbox, but we don't use it very often. I failed to mention the main reason why we use a cushion over a table, and that was because of those gaps that you have in the cushion that you don't have in the table. That allows wider wheelbase vehicles like ambulances, fire trucks, etc., to have less of an impact when they're driving through your street. And so that's why we typically held to using the cushions way more often than not. But this might have its place. We're seeing them in places in parks and things like that where emergency response is not as critical. We do have some before and after data. I always caution folks. I mean, it depends on the street and the configuration and how fast traffic was traveling to begin with. But we are seeing very good results from before and after data using the speed cushions um, in the order of 9, 11, 13 miles an hour, something like that on average. So again, it just depends on the application. One of the tools that we have that, again, you're familiar with from the project on Knob Road is the radar feedback sign. This falls into that category of providing some education to folks, I guess. It does what it says it does. It gives you your feedback, your speed read back to you as you drive past that. Just serves as a good reminder if you are speeding that you are, in fact, going a little too fast and hopefully would slow down. We will use these, and the reason why we use them on Knob Road is a good example. We'll use these where a speed cushion just doesn't work as well for us. Things like steep hills or sharp curves. In some cases, we're dealing on more dense streets than you have in this neighborhood, where it's a lot of driveways, and so to avoid putting a cushion right in front of somebody's driveway, we may opt for a feedback sign, something like that. We do have some capability of doing pavement markings when we think that might help. In most cases, the wider the pavement and the more open it feels, the faster speeds we will see. And so sometimes we'll introduce edge lines or a center line if we think it'll kind of visually narrow that road and make it feel like it should be slower. So that's will happen on occasion. In more urban areas and maybe where there's more pedestrian activity, we will take that a step further and really use pavement markings to kind of delineate a narrower street at intersections. We call those bulb outs, where we try to visually, again, make the road feel narrower. And that also has the effect of shortening the crossing distance for pedestrians who might be trying to walk across those streets in that intersection. A very specialized use of that is the chicane. We have a couple instances of this across Davidson County, but not very many, where we introduce an artificial meandering of the road. It works okay if there's things like on-street parking. So we do have that available as well. And then one that we will bring out from time to time under some kind of special situations at the traffic circle if we're trying to calm two streets that might intersect, for instance. This can be a good tool. It takes an awful lot of pavement. They have to be very big intersections, and we have to consider large vehicles like school buses and all very carefully. They have sometimes have trouble navigating these, but it has its place. So here's the plan for Russleo. It's kind of boring. But that's pretty typical for a lot of the projects where it is really a speed cushion based project. We do that because they're shown to be very effective. The cushions hold up well. People have, they know what to expect. They're kind of used to them, and so we like that consistency. And so this is representative of 95% probably of the plans that we're putting out there. Again, as I mentioned, in this case, this one would really work and feel like a pretty natural extension of the Knob Road project that comes in from the right side of your screen. Charlotte there is on the left side of the screen running north-south. So we don't have anything too close to the stop signs. The plan is really just consists of two sets of speed cushions spaced appropriately, and we think that those two sets will give us it's about just under a 500-foot spacing, which our experience tells us is just about right. It's not too far apart that people will really speed in between the sets of speed cushions, but they're not so close together either that it just feels totally obnoxious for those of you who have to drive across these every day. And we typically see people not diverting onto another parallel street to avoid them, something like that. So kind of run a balance here on the spacing. Just a little bit about where we're going from here. We're here tonight at the red circle, the neighborhood meeting. What we will do after tonight is move into the design where we will come out and actually take some measurements on the street and come back with a little bit more of a refined design plan. It will give more information as to exactly where the sets of speed cushions were. Those are usually referenced from a driveway, so it may say something like, this cushion would be 52 feet from 123 Russleo Drive, whatever the case may be. So you will have access to those. We will upload those to our website where folks will have an opportunity to see those. We can come back to a second neighborhood meeting. We have that available. We typically don't need to on a very basic plan, but if there's more questions or ideas for different things that you think we should be doing, we're happy to take that into consideration and come back as needed. But in most cases, after those design plans are uploaded to the website, we move into an online ballot process that takes about 6 weeks. And then depending on the outcome of that, we would move into construction. That's where our queue is a little bit longer. And right now we're seeing anywhere from NDOT's worked hard, and they've probably shortened that what you see there is 8 months to a year. They've shortened that to probably at least on the shorter end of that of 8 months, maybe even more like 6 months. So we'll kind of see where we are when we get to that point. But just to give you some idea, for there is still a wait after that ballot closes. I want to talk a little bit more about the ballot process. That usually gets some questions. What we will do when it comes time to vote after those plans have been uploaded to the website, we will send out another card like we did for this meeting that will have a unique code on it, and it will have a link to go to an online ballot page that is hosted by Nashville.gov. You'll just go in there and put your information, your name and address, and whether you're for the project or not. And we keep that open for 6 weeks. At the end of that 6 weeks, we look at those responses, and if 2/3 of the respondents have voted in favor, we'll move the project forward. If not, we won't. But it's important to know that that's 2/3 of just the people who respond. We're not looking for a set number of people to vote. Just like a real election, it only counts if you vote. The people that will be included in that, our policy is to include any property owner that owns property that abuts the project limits. In this case would be Russleo Drive between Charlotte and Fleetwood. You can see a little image of that here, any of those shaded properties. With the exception of there may be some of those, maybe one of those down at the Charlotte Pike end is commercial. It may not be. We'll take a look at that. If those are both residential properties, they would both count. But I know a lot of that along Charlotte is commercial. And it's just the folks that abut the right of way of Russleo. So the people on Lansing, the cul-de-sac, we know they use it every bit as much, but that is true for most of the projects we're doing traffic calming on. We know there are a whole lot more people that use those streets than get to vote for it, but the philosophy there is that the people that live on Russleo are the most affected by the speeding. So yeah, in any event, that's the folks that will receive the cards to vote. If a person does own more than one piece of property there along that limit, they only get one vote. I don't think any of these are vacant, but we typically don't send a notice out if it's a vacant piece of property. That is, it doesn't have a house on it. But assuming all these are developed, we will send those again to the owners. And so it's not necessarily the resident, it'll go to the owner on file of those properties. That's my information. I'm Jeff. I'm the one in green down below, and then we have an email address that is monitored by the various project managers that work for Metro there as well. NDOT Traffic Calming at Nashville.gov. I am at Jeff Hammond, all one word, at birchtransportation.com. If you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to send those to us. Reach out to either or both of those email addresses, and we'll do our best to respond to those if a response is warranted. Lastly is just some information about the link back to the NDOT Traffic Calming webpage. A lot of great resources there. The procedures manual and all of the old design plans are there. You can watch the recordings of these meetings. That's where this recording is will be showing up here in a couple of days. But just a lot of information related to all things traffic calming in Nashville. Again, we really appreciate the participation in this process, and as we move forward, we'll be glad to have any feedback from any of you regarding this proposed project on Russleo Drive. With that, I will bid you a very good evening. Thanks again, and look forward to working with you on this. Good night.